Hey everyone, welcome to another BRAP rant. It is Tuesday, May the 28th, and I have with me Game Logic, and we're going to discuss the ESA's new survey on video game consoles. Actually, more specifically, which generations are playing video game consoles, and very interesting survey and very interesting results of that survey. We're going to discuss that here in just a second, but also want to welcome everyone here in the live chat. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. But before we officially kick off the show, I forgot the introduction. So let's hit the intro first. All right, I always forget that when I use StreamYard that the intro always comes second. So that's why one of the reasons why I like using, not that I don't mind StreamYard, but why I typically prefer using Streamlabs is because the intro always kicks in first. And it's just, I think, feel like a smoother transition to the start of the show. But anyhow, Logic, how are you doing this afternoon, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I did legs this morning. So whenever I sit down, I just melt into like a pile of jelly.
Today was leg day.
Yeah. So of course I'm starving, right, is the other part of it. And and the kids are home, right, for summer break with me today.
Yep.
So I made Frank's. I made hot dogs. Are you like a good ballpark, Frank?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny you say that. It's what I had for lunch.
Oh, right. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That was actually not pre-canned. I actually did not know that he also had hot dogs.
That wasn't planned. Yeah.
I like mine a little charred. A little.
Okay.
Just a touch burnt, like kind of crispy on one side.
Okay.
So yeah, I put them in the air fryer today.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
Worked out really well. I wolfed one down before we came down here for the podcast. How are you on fixins? How do you like your ballpark, Frank? Like dressed
All
up?
right. So I use Martin's potato rolls, number one.
Agreed. I do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's always mustard. I just go with mustard. If there's diced onions, then I'll throw some diced onions, some relish if I have that available. But I just threw mustard on today.
Bro, I'm dying because this is literally not pre-canned. I'm the exact same way. Like I was just gonna say, look, like in my younger years, like I liked them like really doctored up. I had a brief like flirtation with like chili dogs just because like at the time in my childhood when I was introduced to them, like they were new.
Okay.
But and I had some time where I was like mayo on them. But today, I'm pretty simple. Like I like cheese and mustard. That's what I'm gonna go for. Like and same as you, if there are diced onions available, I'll take them. But typically I'm not going to go like every once in a while when I have like the time, I'll do that myself. But typically if I'm making them, like, and I'm just making them just for me and everybody else is, and I don't have a lot of time, then, I'll bypass the onions. But yeah, that's quite a coincidence.
Yeah, that's funny. Look, it's hard for me to turn down a good hot dog. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I will completely bypass hot dogs. What I really love is brats, but brats' work are work. Yeah.
Yeah, that takes work. I'll marinate my brats in Miller Lite.
Cool.
Beer.
Wow. That's
bougie. Yeah.
but good.
Yeah, no, it's that's the only way I'll have them. Just have them marinate in some Miller Lite, and then throw them on the flat iron, and have at it. Yeah, I have one of the what are they called? Oh crap! Why can't I remember it? Blackstone. I have a Blackstone grill.
Oh, nice.
That's what I'll make them on. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, Blackstone's. Yeah, it's actually great. I got it as a gift a couple years ago, and it's great for making even like doing breakfast. It's really great for that, and I like Chinese food, like fried rice. It's great for making cheesesteaks, smash
Ooh, nice.
burgers.
Yep.
Yeah. Hot dogs. Yeah, it's good. So, all right. I promise everyone that the show is not about hot dogs. But I see in the live chat talking about hot dogs.
Hey, I mean, in addition to a sports podcast, we also should start a food podcast.
We probably should. Because look, everyone's talking about how they like their hot dogs, chili and raw onion.
Look, man, games
hot dog cheese on top.
Games don't bring people together. Games are divisive. Food, however, that brings everybody to the yard.
Food does bring everyone together. I don't see people constantly worrying about food. Maybe they do, and I'm just not aware of it. I don't see that.
I don't see people complaining about the price of ballpark franks.
I wonder who's in the Oscar Mayer camp.
Hey, they should just eat the cost. No pun intended.
Exactly. Oh my gosh! You imagine people fighting over Nathan's versus ballpark. Nathan's is better. It's the future. Nathan's is pro consumer.
Hey, they've got their ballpark franks in a subscription. You just get them delivered right on time every month. It's the only way to keep my kids safe and off the streets.
Oh my God. Oh man. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Oscar Mayer either. Just wait. Ballpark's the way to go. I'll go with Ballpark or Nathan's, or those are the two brands.
Yeah, somebody called out Hebrew National, and that's the deep cut.
Yeah. I haven't had Hebrew National in a long time, but
yeah,
awesome. Nathan's or and you can't get like the skinny like Franks. You got to get like the bun size. You know what I mean? Like the thicker Franks. Yeah. You can't have that small. Yeah, can't do that. So
look. No offense to anyone, but like the small Franks, that's what I bought when like I was in my 20s and I was broke.
They were like two for $4. Right. Just wait says, let me check Nathan's market cap. Hey,
Nathan's just gave out dividends, so they're more consumer friendly than those other guys.
Oh, they're ahead of the curve. Hey, Gen Z and millennials don't eat ballpark. Right. They're not eating hot dogs. Hot dogs are doomed. There's no growth in hot dogs anymore. Oh my goodness. All right. Speaking of growth, speaking of the millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Logic, you were doing your victory laps yesterday. And all jokes aside, this is something that we've talked about on the show quite a bit. There's been a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation around gaming consoles not growing, it being a mature market, that the next generation of gamers, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, they're not going to be console gamers. At least that's what we were told. That was a lot of the narrative that was coming out from YouTubers, from other pundits. And I would lean, Logic, I don't know if you agree with me on this, I'd lean more on the side that there was a certain platform of pundits and podcasters, or those individuals supporting a particular platform that were really pushing that narrative of, well, our kids, the Gen Alpha, they're not playing video games on consoles. The way they play video games is going to be vastly different. Consoles are kind of on their last leg.
Hey, well, let's keep it a buck. Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, was reported as saying, every screen is an Xbox. And then I think she actually said that during the business update in February. And that became the new war cry, right? Every screen is an Xbox. Xbox is, publishing their games to multiple platforms now. They're then going to put them.
Does that mean my LED screen and my Yukon Denali is an Xbox?
Well, my standing joke is, they're putting games on the microwave screen, so in the hopes that my wife will play Halo Infinite. And I keep trying to explain to people like that's not going to happen, right? Because if there were latent Halo Infinite players somewhere behind all of these skunkwork screens, right, somewhere, then those people would have probably already found their way to games. Like these aren't Inhumans or mutants with the X gene, waiting for their powers to activate, right?
Yeah. I mean, not secretly living among us,
right? Yeah. Like, look, I think the reality, the sociological reality,
sure,
is that the people who play games, and when I say this, I talk about core games, and we're going to talk a little bit about the difference. And I don't like the term. It's been weaponized in the past. It's been tropish in the past, but I don't have anything better to hang my hat on right now. So I'm going to talk about core games, and that's the games that we play, and that I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast play. So your shooters, your 4X games, your RTSs, your third-person action adventure games, your RPGs, things that typify the type of content on consoles, and to a certain extent, right, what is on PC. And I say to a certain extent on PC because I think one of the other things we need to realize as we go through and we talk about these numbers, when people talk about the vast majority of quote unquote PC gamers, and people keep coming at me with, PC game growth is exceeding consoles, or is going to exceed consoles. Again, we need to go back to an understanding that when they pull these metrics and they talk about the numbers, because when you're talking about PC game numbers and you're abstracting them from Steam, Epic, and GOG, right, and maybe a few other kind of gray market sites, you then start talking about, right, people, Minesweeper, Solitaire, Flash games in the browser, Granny playing gambling poker, right, on her website. Like, all those numbers are included. So if you really want to look at what the real market size is of PC games in terms of core games, you really can just look at Steam, because Steam has research around it, not by Steam, but by other parties, that will talk about how much of the market they own. And then you extrapolate, right? Then you look at the total number of Steam users, and you can extrapolate from there, and you can get to like a round ballpark figure of what I refer to as the paying PC customer is. Because people playing Minesweeper and Solitaire, they're not paying into the market where we're pulling metrics for when we talk about PC gaming and console revenue.
Yeah. Let me share this tweet here that you put out yesterday. And let's see here. Where is it? Oh, here we go. All right. So this was... Gotta love the DX reference here, by the way. All right, Logic. So this is a tweet you put out. Great information here, by the way. This is a screenshot that you took of a graph by the ESA. And I'm going to read your tweet here, Logic. The ESA Essential Facts 2024, showing exactly the opposite of what prominent influencers and pundits have been trying to tell you, is an ELE of the console gaming space, and to a lesser extent the PC gaming space, that Gen Z and Alpha might never care about consoles, and that they'll only play on tablets and phones. Guess we're a ways off from seeing that prediction come to fruition. And then here's the graph. I'll pull the graph up here, and there's Triple H and Shawn Michaels. It's funny. All right, so let's pull up this graph here. All right. So Logic, you did circle the findings here of this graph of gaming platforms played by generations. And it looks like Gen Alpha, Gen Z, 54% of them are playing on PC, 58% are playing on console. Millennials, 55% are playing on console, 48% on PC. Gen X, this actually surprised me, by the way, Logic. Only 35% surveyed are playing on console, 39% are playing on PC. And then you have the boomers, baby boomers, 43% are playing on console. And I'm sorry, 43% are playing on PC, and then 7% are playing on console. So again, I was really surprised by the Gen X number. I thought that number would have been higher. But I know we discussed this earlier today. And I'll let you share your thoughts on maybe why that's the case, where Gen X is lower than the millennials and Gen Alpha, Gen Z. But why do you think that is, Logic? Why do you think we're seeing Gen X at a lower number, right, in terms of engaging or playing games on consoles than the millennials and Gen Alpha, Gen Z?
Yeah, so first of all, I should have had this at my fingertips, but I need to remind myself what years. Yeah, so Gen X's years 1965 to 1980. So that means Gen X is approaching retirement for for those who have been, frugal, they may already be in retirement. They are probably, except for like your upper, I would say 10% of your employment workforce, they are probably at points where their income earning potential is pretty capped out. They may, also be experiencing things like, having to put kids through college, et cetera. So I think this graph, and the reason why I circled some of them, is it points out a few things that to me are interesting. First of all, like the numbers that you mentioned, right? The surprising dip, because it's also surprising because what have pundits been telling us? They've been telling us that only Gen X plays consoles, and that the numbers are super big around consoles, right? And PC, right, in our generation, and it tapers off in the younger generations. Whereas the ESA research actually shows that that's actually not the case. Now, let me preface this a little bit as we walk through this too. This isn't about an assertion that this is the one right thing, right? It's actually a counter to the narrative and agenda-driven conversation that's been going on that asserts the opposite. When pundits and big influencers told us that only Gen X cares about consoles and it tapers off, their assertion was that their research, their fact-finding, their data was the only thing that was correct, and there was zero room in the conversation to have a conversation. So it was much more so them talking at us than actually having a conversation about it. I would be a little arrogant and say that's not what we do on this channel. I think, we could definitely be accused of periodically dipping into this not being accurate. But I would say by and large, the effort we put forth on this channel is not to talk at you. It's to present alternate perspectives in order to generate conversation. And we encourage that. And I'll repeat the cliche that you guys are tired of hearing me saying. Don't believe what I'm telling you or what we're telling you and take it at face value. Take this, go off and do additional research, use it as an impetus and platform off of it to go dig, find 3 other opinions, and then arrive at your own conclusion. Okay, enough of the soapbox. So I'll go back to, right, so Gen X is tapering off. So I think what this shows is a few different things. Number one, Gen X, as big as we think we are in terms of being banner wavers for console gaming and PC gaming and gaming in general, because it came into inception during the course of our lives, the reality is that we had to onboard to gaming. In fact, when gaming started, there really wasn't something that you could really define, I think, as the gaming culture or the gaming lifestyle. That was a thing that formulated. And there's large swaths in terms of percentages of the population that never onboarded to it. For them, that was not a natural, even societal fixture, right? The gamer population. And in fact, if you look at like the tabletop RPG population, I would even say that we are a societal cell that even trails them, right, in terms of inception and thereby like social maturity, right, in terms of formulation of norms. So as this generation ages, there are going to just be more people that never acclimated to it. But by the same token, there are going to be people who it wasn't an inherent, like integrated, tightly woven component of their lives, and they're going to drop off. As I talk about the upper crust of Gen X and how much older they are and where they're proceeding in life, I think what you're seeing here is you're seeing people who maybe they had an Xbox 360, maybe even they had an Xbox One, but they're also at an age where they're like, and we talk about like these numbers of consoles that aren't being replaced, the people that aren't upgrading. I think that's a lot of this generation that you're seeing kind of aging out, right, of the gaming lifestyle.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Who are like, maybe they're married, maybe they're more into watching movies or whatever, with their spouse or, whatever. Yeah. But I think it's a cost matter. It's a disposable income matter. It's I just don't want to be bothered matter. And it's also the convenience of mobile. Mm-hmm. And while a lot of what we will talk about is a detraction from that, what I will say for older generations, if you don't want to be bothered and futz around with, like look, there's just tons of this generation that never even had the technical know-how to even futz with a PC, much less a gaming PC. Mm-hmm. So I think at their age, there's just more people who are like, they all have to have phones, right? Mm-hmm. So, they have phones, they play Wordle, right? They play Candy Crush, mm-hmm. And that's why you see, because the other thing I want to point to is like, look at the numbers of mobile. They actually increase as you go left to right across the generations.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out too. Like if you look at mobile, you don't see that large disparity between or that disparity between Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They're pretty consistent across the board. I mean, even though it's the boomers.
Yeah, right. And I mean, and then the other thing you do is you look at those numbers, and I'm like, that's the saturation that you would assume is true for just smartphones in general. Like I don't know that much greater than 81% of the total population has a smartphone. So if basically everyone in Gen X who has a smartphone also games on a smartphone, which is a very, even at the most basic level, because everybody can pull up a game and play it while they're in line in the grocery store or in the 5 minutes of the movie theaters waiting for previews to start. Or while they're sitting in the family room waiting for other family members to show up to watch a movie, whatever. I think that's the percentage you're seeing, and it's incredibly high because it's an incredibly low bar to have to get over to be considered as playing games on mobile. But by the same token, it's fully saturated. Like if the total population rate isn't much higher than 81% who has a smartphone, then there's not going to be much growth there in terms of getting to numbers of people. And this is where I start to poke holes in the whole this screen is an Xbox and the notion that that's going to lead to growth. I'm like, if those people, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say to your point with mobile, I shared that that Marcus that market the market research by Morgan Stanley, and I wish I would have bookmarked that, but it's out there on Twitter where they talked about the mobile market, the mobile gaming market, and how it become a mature market, and that the way that particular market was going to grow was to create better content and to figure out new ways to generate or to monetize existing customers on mobile,
which is
very familiar to console. It sounds very similar to consoles.
Well, it's the exact same thing that Phil Spencer said when he was trying to note it as a negative about potential of the console space. He said we have the same number of people that we've been selling the consoles to, which is actually inaccurate because as we see here, there's a generational shift, right? You have people who age out, and then you have younger generations who age in to your console market. So first of all, this whole narrative that you've been selling consoles to the same people is actually categorically incorrect. Maybe people don't mean it the way that they say it, but you're not selling them to the same people. You've got clearly this is indicating that you've got a new generation of people coming in who are buying consoles and will want content on consoles. Now they may want different content, and that's a thing to be discussed. But going back to my original contention, millennials, alpha, and Gen Z, the greater adhesiveness of gaming for them is that they were born into it. It's not new. It's not nouveau. It's not bourgeoisie, right? It's just a thing, right? That people naturally and natively do. Here you show numbers exceeding 50% of the population of that generation that plays games on console. For Alpha and Gen Z, that plays on console and PC. So it's much more native. Remember that for Gen X, for a lot of people, it is still very unusual. I would even say it's way unusual for them these days to have a desktop PC in the home. It's far more typical for them to simply have a laptop.
Yeah. So Logic, we talked about this ESA finding, and I want to play this video here. This is Stanley. This is let me a second here. Let me pull this video up. Let's see. I'm pulling up this. Let's see. This is from. All right. This is another tweet that you put out yesterday, and this is a capture of What's Good Games, and Andrea and Brittany Brombacher. They're actually interviewing the president and chief executive officer of the ESA, Stanley Pierre Louis. And let me play this here right now.
But in looking at that, like we really got to see firsthand where this next generation is going. one of the things we learned is that the heaviest users of consoles and PCs are actually Gen Z and Gen A. They actually lead the way in using console and PC. So as people bemoan the death of consoles, we're looking at a new generation that really enjoys playing on those devices. So I think it's exciting to see that they're playing, that they're doing so with family. We also asked parents about their gameplay with, but
So so one thing that's interesting there, Logic, is that this survey, they actually went directly to not just the parents, but also to the actual individuals who are in those particular groups of Gen Z and Gen Alpha.
Yeah, so a big change in this is something that the ESA does every year. Their essential facts. It is a survey, right? So it's they obviously didn't canvass the entirety of the
No.
population. They took a sample size, which is no different than the methodology being used for all of these other assertions that have been made. But one thing that they've done in the past, and I think it has fed some of the dialogue, is that for gamers who were minors, they had never interviewed them directly before. They had always taken it via third-party transfer right through the parents. And I think that's where you get a little bit of this, articulation of the way kids game that is not actually reflective of how they actually game. And I think it also decouples a lot of the narrative that I've heard around podcasts, right, and stuff which is that, I talk to my nieces and nephews all the time, and the only thing they talk about playing is on tablet and phone. And maybe to a lesser extent, an assertion that the only thing they talk about playing is Minecraft and Roblox. Now, again, I know those things are big, but I don't think they are. I don't think that they are singular. And I think what the gaming industry has shown is that as big as any movement is at any moment in time in a snapshot of the gaming industry, battle royales, RTSs back in the early 2000s, no publisher who has to run an entire portfolio of content can afford to take a non-diversified view of the market. No publisher can say, hey, battle royale's big. I'm going to produce and greenlight nothing but battle royales right now. So, I mean, I get it, right? UGC type content, has certain traction, but nobody who's a going concern as a large corporation in the gaming industry can afford to just hyper focus on UGC.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. I want to grab a super chat from Otacon Oslo with a $2 super chat. Says, what I miss? How are you all doing today? BRAP and Logic doing well. Otacon Oslo, thank you for that super chat, sir. Appreciate it. Logic, I did actually, as we were discussing the interview with the president and CEO of the ESA and their findings from their recent survey, I did pull up some additional information here on their website. So you'll see this here. 65% of Americans, 212.6 million Americans play video games at least 1 hour a week. Video game players are diverse. 62% of adults 18 and older play video games. 76% of kids under 18 play video games. 32 is the average age of a video game player. And that's interesting. We talk about the, disposable income. You get older, you start getting your 30s, you start seeing more or you should, at least in my opinion, start seeing an increase in disposable income. But 53% of video game players identify as male, 46% of video game players identify as female. 45% of players agree that video games give them the most value of their money compared to movies, TV, or music. There we go. The top 5 game genres for all players are puzzles. That was actually surprised. I was actually surprised by this, Logic. But I think my own surprise is because of the bubble that I'm in.
Well, that goes back to what I said, right? Which is that like tons of PC gamers are mom, pop, grandpop, and granddad, right? Playing goofy, free to play, flash based, dorkish puzzle games, right? From whatever gray market website that they can get them on, probably siphoning off their personal data. Right, who knows what else? Right, but that's part of what's
Yeah, exactly. But I think that speaks to kind of like, at least for me, when I read the 63% are puzzles, I was kind of like, well, wait a minute. And then I thought, okay, well, my perspective and view is based on my interaction on Twitter, and what I play. And to your point, like when everyone says, "Oh, PC," look, there's going to be a lot of growth on PC for like PlayStation or Microsoft, but it's like, well, wait a minute, everyone, like not everyone's playing those types of games on PC. Like it's a different consumer. So puzzle 63%, arcade and others 52%, skill and chance 44%, shooters are 42%, action is 41%. And then we see device usage here. Mobile 64%, console 54%, PC, laptop 45%, tablet 24%, VR 10%. Let's see, player engagement 75% play at least 4 hours of games a week across all platforms. Average hours played a week is 12.8. 12% of players only play on smartphones. 58% of video game players use multiple platforms. All right, I'm not going to go through the rest here, but I would encourage everyone, though, to go to the ESA's website. There's a lot of great information here. If you go to data and resources, you can pull up this information here. And they have some information. Essentially, everyone plays growth engine for the U.S. economy. I'm going to have to go back myself and dig into some of these and just some of the information that they have here.
Yeah, I mean, a couple other statistical things that I would highly encourage people to take a look at. I often post these things, frequently every time they come out, and I often get people who will come at me sideways on Twitter because they're not familiar with the data, they haven't read the data. I think I got into an argument with somebody today who tried to, because we were talking about Hellblade 2, and a couple of us were saying how we would never replay that game because it was hard enough for us coming to that game in the first place, and the person telling us, "Hey, are you guys real gamers? Replayability is the most important things in games." And I was like, that's quantifiably incorrect. Right? There were GDC presentations in 2014. Joseph Fares and multiple senior designers around the industry have said that most people don't finish playing games, much less replay them. And Joseph Fares has called on media and reviewers to stop hyper-focusing on trying to assert value or measure the notion of replayability, because the play data from actual consumers shows that they don't care. Now, I get it. There's some very opinionated people and some very strong-willed people who will assert that they do. But again, what I always go back to is just because you're more opinionated and more assertive doesn't mean that you are the market, right?
It's a great point, Logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a couple of things that I wanted to talk about in terms of other statistics that I thought were interesting in this report is, I think one of the other common conventions that goes around today by certain camps is that they don't like DEI, and they feel like the justification for DEI is that corporations think that they'll sell more, and then they assert that that's not true. Whereas what this report shows is, particularly as you go right deeper and deeper into oncoming generations, those generations are more diverse, and therefore the gamer market makeup is more diverse, and therefore you have more people of diverse perspectives who do enjoy seeing themselves presented as protagonists in games who are actually part of the gaming market. I get it. Conservatives buy video games too, and I absolutely agree that therefore there should be video games that cater to those conservatives. However, LGBTQ people also buy video games. Black people also buy video games. Hispanics also buy video games, right? And so therefore, at some point, it's so frustrating because these are often the same people who are yammering and flapping their gums about no market growth, right? Geez,
yeah.
You think maybe only having white male homosexual protagonists might have a problem with stunted market growth? So my point is, I think there's statistics in this report that debunk some of that. Another thing.
I don't disagree with you. Like, I think I've talked about this. I said this. I think, especially around the conversation of Assassin's Creed Shadows, where people are upset about the use of a black protagonist in the game. And it's like, and you know, we all have seen the conversations around DEI and forced inclusion. It's like, you know, one way to grow the market, and I know you just said it, but it's again something we've talked about behind the scenes, is by appealing to a larger group of individuals, you know, and having them, you know, who they identify as a protagonist, as playable characters in video games. That's one way to attract more people. So I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
So I think another thing that I wanted to point out, and you said it earlier, was can you, so in the report on page 17, there is a graphic that shows the cross-section and intersection of multiple platforms. You talked to it before, but just to maybe help by bringing the graphic up.
Let's see here.
Actually, sorry, pages 16 and 17.
Give me a second here. No, I can't find it.
Okay. So the thing I want to point out is, you know, yes.
Is this on the let's see here. Essential facts about U.S. game industry. Let me go back to this again.
This is not on the main page. This is actually in the downloaded report.
Okay.
So at the top of the main page, that first blurb, the 2024 essential facts about the U.S. video game industry, there is a green circle 17? With a download arrow.
Yeah, what page was it again?
Page 16 and 17. Pages 16 and 17.
It's not 16, 17. Because that's something else.
Yeah, I'm looking right at it. It says platform crossover among total players 8 and over. 78% of U.S. households have played at least one gaming device in the past 12 months. And then it shows a orange circle, a red circle, and a blue circle.
What the heck am I looking at then?
It's not a big deal. What I wanted to point out is, like I said, because you talked to it earlier, is that, you know, yes, mobile is big, but what is right behind just mobile as a standalone platform number is the intersection right between console, PC, and mobile. And actually, that triangulated cross section is actually bigger than any.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Logic, I'm sorry to mean to interrupt you,
but
yeah. I have it up on the screen now, the slide.
Yeah, I think it is. What is it? Oh, no. Okay. I think you're looking at the PDF page numbers on the left thing. I'm talking about the actual page numbers on the document itself. Yeah, okay. There you go. Right there.
There you go, right here. Okay.
Yeah. So notice, if you notice that there's the 31% of mobile in the lower left-hand corner, but notice the cross-section of all three is the second largest number at 19%. Right. And so that's to say that it is clearly important and impactful to be aware of that, of how gamers play, and see that knock-on effect. And part of what this goes back to and speaks to is, you know, Nintendo bought this port house, right, a couple of weeks ago. And there was all the waving of the terrible towels saying, oh, that's it. See, I told you I was right. You know, Nintendo's getting in the game. They're going to start porting their games to other platforms also. You know, I'm like, first of all, if you read the press release, that's not what they said. Second of all, I go back to, right, we have this number now, but we also have numbers in the past where we saw that percentages as high as like 60% of Nintendo Switch owners also own either a PlayStation or an Xbox. And so in many cases, the Nintendo Switch is not their primary platform. If Nintendo were to make their first-party titles available on PlayStation and Xbox, what reason would people continue to have to go out and buy a Nintendo? Now, some people, it wouldn't go to zero. Some people would still like that portability if they're going to continue on with the Switch form factor, which all signs point to that they are. But there are a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily go that far and would say, hey, I don't need a Nintendo Switch. So again, I appreciate the grasping at straws at an anecdotal data point, but you need to bring that back to an analysis of the business case and walk the dog and talk me through why does it make sense. Right? Just because somebody fires a flare does not mean they're drowning at sea. Right? We need to have a more sophisticated conversation and bring some more details into this.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. Yeah, and this is why I think it's important to share the findings here at the ESA. Because again, I would encourage everyone to go to their website, look at this information. You can download the PDF, which we have here on the screen. Gives you a lot of insight into trends and more specific trends here in the U.S. Do want to preface that, but it's we talked about some of these numbers here. Gaming devices played on amongst individuals. Mobile 78%, PC 47%, console 43%. And then obviously we shared the numbers per generation. Was there another slide? I think did you say page 17 as well? Was that another one?
No. I was just talking about that combined view there. I think the last thing I'd say on this topic is, so if you go off and watch that interview, and I would encourage people to give What's Good Games a listen. I don't necessarily, quite frankly, very frequently agree with what that panel asserts, but I think it is an important podcast on the landscape, and I think it's worthwhile to go give a listen to it. Even if you just go to that one episode, the most recent episode where they're interviewing the ESA CEO, I will say later in the interview, Brittany Brombacher does kind of put him on the spot and basically says, I mean, I'm color commentary with my own words, but basically puts him on the spot and says, hey, put up or shut up. Phil Spencer said this. What are your thoughts on what Phil Spencer said? And she was talking about how, I can't remember the exact quote now, but how Phil Spencer was saying about growth. And asserting that, like, basically there was no more growth available in consoles, that they were just selling to the same customers over and over again. And admittedly, he echoed the same thing that Satya said, which is basically, you meet your customers where they are. And he cited Netflix as an example. But what I will say is my caveat, I guess, with what he offered. First of all, he starts off that segment talking about how what Netflix is doing has catalyzed what everyone else is doing about cloud gaming. And there's a nuance there from a technology perspective. The catalyst for what has gone on with cloud gaming was Stadia. Google, granted long-term, it wound up being unsuccessful. However, they were the first ones to really get a wide-ranging, commercialized, monetized model for cloud game streaming off the ground floor. And that did, regardless of whether it was successful or not, did catalyze Microsoft, Xbox, and NVIDIA to get their acts together and roll out services, right? Did finalize the rollout of services of GeForce Now and Xbox Cloud Gaming in a much more robust fashion than it was at the time. Because if you remember the whole Xbox pattern, right? That thing suddenly went from Xbox Cloud Gaming after Stadia suddenly went from being a beta to suddenly being like a formalized part of the service for Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I think there was a nuance in there that I think people not as familiar with that chronology, right, would miss. But the other thing is, when he talks about that, I'm sure that, again, proponents of the other perspective in this argument would say, oh, well, see, he said right there, he agreed with what Satya and Xbox are doing and saying. And I'm like, but that's not what he said. Notice that he didn't talk about hardware. He talked about Netflix. And so what he's saying is that Netflix, where the service is the platform, and Netflix does not care about what screen you're on, the gaming movement that is there that is seeking growth is not about saying every screen is an Xbox. Every screen is already a Netflix channel. But their point is that you're going to be introduced to games wherever Netflix is. Where Netflix is moving is they're moving to, when you bring up Netflix, you're going to start seeing availability for video content and availability for games. And where you gain traction with that is via the service. So there's a compelling service that millions of people are interested in. And when those people access that service, they're going to start seeing games available as well. In order for Xbox to replicate the same thing, they would have to have a service that is as compelling as Netflix. And today they don't.
They don't, yeah. That's the big differentiator, yeah.
So who cares what screen it's on, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's as compelling as Netflix, it's not getting the same thing. And then the last thing I would say on that is, this is the key thing that I also say about this content on every screen, and it conjoins with what Sean Layden said. Like, you can go to every screen if you want to, but if the plan and the intent is to put Halo Infinite, Gears of War, and Call of Duty on screens and present that to the Asian market, which has the largest number of gamers worldwide, where they have clearly indicated that they're not interested in that content, then how in the world does that lead to growth? You need different content, and you need different culture that informs how you're building that content. And again, to me, that's a key core piece that's missing from such a strategy right now.
Yeah, it's something we talked about quite a bit, that we don't hear them forging those relationships, partnerships, and maybe they are behind the scenes, but we really haven't heard that.
You have to dig and find it. Like, I'm very aware of like what's going on with the Hero Project, because Sony kind of puts that in front of your face.
And the India Hero Project, and their investment in working with developers in Africa. There was an article recently about, I think this was GameIndustry.biz. There was an article on ways the industry is going to look at cost saving, and one of that is actually developing games in other markets where the cost of labor isn't as expensive in places like the US. So
yeah, and there's two deltas that I see right currently between PlayStation and Xbox on that topic. Xbox is participating in similar activities, but you don't hear about them as much. You have to go dig for it, and I mean, that's even if you look at the company's own website, right? It's just not as prominent. The other thing is the Sony programs have actually produced tangible product, and as far as I know, the Xbox initiatives have not, right? So there are games that have come out that are published to Steam and have track records, review scores, right? Units sold that you can actually go look at and find, but you can't find, right? But Xbox, that as far as I know, hasn't delivered anything to the customer.
Yeah. One thing here, Logic, on this slide is top sources of info when considering purchasing a new game. I often hear that reviews aren't important. They don't matter. And you look at read or watch player user reviews, 54%. Now that's up there with, so I should mention, okay, top sources of info when considering purchasing a new game, percentage agree amongst players 18 and older. Read or watch player user reviews, 54%. Watch official trailers, promos, videos, 54%. Ask friends, family for opinions, 51%. Play a trial version of a demo if one is available, 50%. And search for information on forums or social media, 49%.
Yeah, so reviews matter. And
reviews do matter, absolutely.
And people
that's my point of bringing that up, by the way, because people are very dismissive of reviews. And I think, unfortunately, that is a case of, okay, we're going to be dismissive of reviews when a review doesn't prop up our platform of choice or the game that is exclusive to our platform of choice.
Yeah. And and it happens on both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would say that one side seems to be much louder and caustic and more riled up about it than others. I think when, at least at volume, when PlayStation fans see a review they don't agree with, they may comment about it, but then they go on about their business playing the games that they want. But there seems to be this whole like grassroots, picket line, torches and pitchforks effort that sprouts up on Twitter every time a review comes out that the Xbox community doesn't agree with.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab the super chat from. Yep, go ahead.
Even when at aggregate the game is doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Donnell Brown with a $5 super chat says, after this weekend, I think Sony fans are slow. They think PS5 can keep up with a high-end PC now. And if it's the Sony fans and it's the Sony fans in the Twitter space. I
don't disagree.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I often see them compare the PS5 to a P. I'm like, stop. Just stop doing that. Yeah, Logic, this has been a great conversation. There's a lot of great information that we shared here. And I think for me, at least, my biggest takeaway from this conversation, from reading some of the findings here from the ESA, is that, again, there's just seems to be this big disconnect between the conversations that we often hear on certain YouTube channels, pundits, influencers, the gaming conversation on Twitter. It just seems just big. There's a lot of missing pieces to the puzzle here. And there's just, in my opinion, there just seems to be a big disconnect in terms of what is actually happening within the market versus what people think's actually happening. And I think, unfortunately, people are putting a lot of, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't. You let me know how you feel about this, Logic. But in my opinion, I'm not saying you should be totally dismissive of a YouTuber or an influencer, but I would encourage you to fact check them. I would encourage you to think critically about what they're saying and to do your own research.
Yeah, follower account is quite frankly, just no Loctite silver bullet indication of credibility, right, or validity. It's an indication of it trying to say something that's not entirely too slanderous. Look, it's an indication of an ability to entertain, right? And as we should all know from watching the news and seeing what like news coverage has become in this country, being entertaining is not the equivalent of being informative.
Logic, thank you so much for saying that, because that is where I think people I think now have or I don't want to say all people, but I think some people view entertainment as being informed now, and those are vastly two different things.
Yeah, and I mean, and you can be a proponent of, you know, the Daily Show and the Jon Stewart show, like all that stuff, and I get it, right? But we just, in my opinion, in all cases, you need to be conscious. I mean, it goes back to one of our big themes, right? You need to always apply critical thought. I don't care if the person's a CEO. We frequently get that. You know, I assume that the CEO knows more than you do. Okay. I also assume that the CEO has motivations that I don't have. Right? That he wants to sell his product, that he wants it to be profitable, that he wants it to achieve his corporate strategy. Right? He or she. Right? Those are motivations that I don't have. So, I mean, in all cases, you know, whoever it is, whatever they put out, in my opinion, it always needs to be cross-cut. It always needs to be shredded. It always needs to be put through mesh. Like I frequently get a lot of, well, I spoke to this person or that person, and I'm like, okay, like that the person's not Jesus Christ. I don't, like, what do you want me to say? You know. So
okay.
I think, you know,
not JC.
Yeah, I just think in all cases we need to apply critical thought, and you know, I would advocate separate that from your belief system, but I know not everyone will. But you know, like I said, just put it through a shredder and think about it and bounce it off of a few different sources instead of just taking the one.
Oh, absolutely. But again, go to the ESA's website. There's a lot of great information here. There's a lot of great information. Like, seriously, go check out the ESA. And, you know, I'd love to get the president and CEO of the ESA on BRAP. I'm going to try to figure out how to make that happen. And now I forget his name. Pierre Louis is his last name, but what's his first name? Damn it. Now this is going to bug me. Here we go. Stanley. There we go. Stanley Pierre Louis. You know they're headquartered here in DC, right, Logic?
Oh no, I didn't, but that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean they're a lobbying body for the video game industry, so yeah, they're here in DC. I believe Phil Spencer did serve on the board at one point. I don't know if he still is, but
yeah, I think I don't know if he individually is. I think those are like some representative from the company.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if they are anymore. Not E3 is no longer a thing. But I wanted to share this comment here in the live chat. Dr. Kilshaw says, "You at BRAP, thanks for the heads up on this info. Great show. Thank you. I appreciate that."
Yeah, and again, I mean that's the central theme, right? The central theme isn't our analysis and breakdown of it. The central theme is go read the report. It's a thing that tangibly exists. You can reach out and touch it, pull it down, read it yourself, right, and come away with your own conclusions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. All All right, Logic. That's all I have in terms of topics or thoughts. Any other closing thoughts before we wrap up this rant?
No, man. No, good show.
Yeah, no, this is really, this is great. I'm going to go back and read this is like a 27 page. She's longer than that. It's about a 31 page PDF. I'm going to read all the information they have here. This is well put together by the ESA, by the way. Just a lot of great information on trends, who's playing video games, why people play video games, ethnicity of adult players. We talked about DEI. Look, there's certainly opportunities to grow the video game industry there. There's actually a part about the economic impact of video games here in the U.S. So just a lot of insight. There's also a tab on the history of video games too, which I'm going to read. I encourage everyone to check that out as well. All right, and everyone, we will be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our regular scheduled BRAP. And Logic, we are definitely going to be discussing, it's official now, the next Call of Duty will be in Game Pass. So we'll talk about that. We'll discuss Matt Piscatello's tweets, or what he thinks might be I know he gave his opinion on what he thinks the impact of Call of Duty on Game Pass might be. So we'll talk about that and some other topics as well. But please definitely join us tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our regular schedule BRAP. And do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, hit that like button. If you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you are alerted when we go live. And I'll say this: if you're not following Game Logic, I'm going to put you on the I'm going to put you in the spotlight here. If you're not following Game Logic, you need to follow him on Twitter. Please follow him. Always a lot of great insight, a lot of great information that he puts out there. Some of it, I know some people complain about how long-winded some of that information is, Logic, but it's always insightful. It's always insightful. So,
yeah, and the point of it being expansive is because we get enough one-liners. I think, again, as I wrote yesterday, I think if that's what you need, if that's the demand signal you're putting out, I think there are enough content creators, YouTubers who do that. I think there's so much of it that, again, people walk away with these misconceived notions of how things actually work and what's actually going on. And yeah, my write-ups are long. They're long because I did it a few times and people asked for it, right? People said that that's what they appreciated. People said that, they wanted to see more of that and less of the, things that skate by a lot of things and don't really put all the pieces together. So I get it. It's not for everyone, but I deliberately don't write it for everyone. Nor do I want the type of baggage that comes along with attracting a ton of people, because you start getting customers that you don't want.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I wish, I know we talked about this on the show. I would prefer the conversation around gaming to be a bit more nuanced as opposed to the one-liners and the L and the trash commentary. It doesn't do anything positive for video games, in my opinion. So,
well, Brad, that's because you're on the copium.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm being negative all the time too. I learned that today.
You need to use your imagination.
Yes, I do need to use my imagination. I probably would have enjoyed Starfield more had I been able to do that. So, anyhow, all right, everyone. Well, Logic, thank you again. Always a pleasure. I don't know if you want to let everyone know where they can find you. I'll leave that up to you.
No, I'll use that time to send the message. Look, if you think, and I'm not saying you should, I'm saying if you're Hellblade 2 curious, I would say give the game a whirl. Particularly if you're on Game Pass, there's really no reason for you not to. I see not a lot of people, as much as I would want, progressing as far through the game as I have, and I haven't completed it. So I would say, it's a thing your preferred platform spent money on to go get. So you should reward that effort by playing it. And then I would also say, look, I'm gonna spend the time this afternoon drinking coconut water because I'm kind of tired and dehydrated from running victory laps. So, gonna get my fluids back on.
Yeah, coconut water is actually really good especially if you're feeling dehydrated. I would encourage everyone to drink coconut water. It's actually really good. But Logic, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today's BRAP rant. Again, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so please join us then. If you're new, again, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Please hit that like button. Helps out the channel, helps people find our content as well. So thank you again so much for your time, and we will see you. Oh, thank you. There we go. DJ Dana G, thank you. Just up to your channel. Thank you. Appreciate that. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Catch us then. And we will see you. Oh, thank you, Jerome, later. I hit that by accident. All right, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Take care.